My brothers and sisters in Christ, today's first reading reminds us of the importance of trying to see not just as we see things, but as God sees things. In my reflection yesterday, I talked about the interaction between Samuel and Saul as a reminder of the importance of discernment in the spiritual life. That Saul constantly was struggling, was choosing a good, but not the good God wanted him to pursue. In a sense, he struggled to discern between two goods. Now, in this case, Samuel has gone because God has rejected Saul. And so Samuel has gone under the orders of God to go anoint David. In a sense, God says, I want to anoint a new king. And so in the selection of Jesse's sons, Samuel is sent forth, as we read, and yet God does not tell him up front which son it is. And so we hear that Samuel's eye is naturally drawn to the one who appears most impressive. We're not given many details, but you can imagine he's drawn to the one that's strongest in stature, most imposing, physically present, perhaps the one that has the most strong personality. And yet God says, no, this is not the one I've chosen, because try to see as I see. I see the heart, not just the outward appearance. And so, of course, ultimately, as we read, Samuel finds David, who's smaller, who's ready in appearance. We compare this in the future to when we hear David versus Goliath. You know, the small, unimpressive David compared to the giant of Goliath, and yet David wins. And the battle is famously recorded. But it reminds us that exactly as God tells Samuel, God sees the heart, not outward appearance. We are called to use the gifts that we've been given. We constantly make judgments in our day-to-day life. Hour by hour, minute by minute, we're constantly making judgments. We see our sensory data causes us to make judgments. We perceive. And yet, while we do that, our discernment must lead us to look deeper, to look beyond the obvious and the superficial, and to see as God does. And so in this, we see that the old adage that God does not choose those who are qualified, but he qualifies those whom he chooses. And so this applies to our perception of others and of ourselves. Often we perceive others, and by human standards, those who are most impressive must be the ones most amazing to God, but perhaps not so. In the same way, sometimes we can use this to cast doubt on ourselves that God would ever dare to use me for his purposes. After all, there's people that are either more impressive or smarter or holier or wiser, certainly, than I am. And yet, if God chooses me, then God qualifies me to do the task to which he's appointed me. And so, my brothers and sisters, we must have discerning hearts, not just to choose between goods, to choose good over evil, but to perceive what God seeks for us, what God sees in others, as we seek to see Christ in one another, to see as God does, and most of all, to have the confidence that God has given a very sacred task and purpose to each and every one of us. May God bless you all.